Now, I just had to delete everything from the little camera here because it was chock-a-block. Well, I don't think it's morning. I think it's gone 12. So good afternoon to everybody. You may be able to hear the little bee that's buzzing about here. We've had a little bit of wet weather, just not too much, just enough to feed the plants, water the plants. They were in desperate need of it. And this morning I've been cutting back some of the fuchsia hedge up there in the bank. Now, as you know, virtually everything I grow here is either from seeds or cuttings. So the fuchsia hedge, which is just up there on the bank, just zoom in, looks a little bit sparse now because I've cut it back quite hard, but all that was grown from cuttings. And what I've done, I've taken all the cuttings and I've spread them along the bank. As I do, I make sure that everything goes back into the earth, onto the earth, to make more soil. Just hear the bees, they're very busy today. They've got a bit of catching up to do because of the rain. So you can see here the London Pride on the steps and the ginormous geranium and more London Pride spilling out down there. And we've got fuchsia coming up between the stones. And there's Jack having a little nibble of the grass. There's only certain grasses that he likes to chew on. Come on, Jack, you'll have to move out of my way. So this is the most recent addition to the gardens. This is the little orchard that I planted a couple of years ago, and I have to come up here now and do a little bit more mulching with cardboard and straw, because you can see the extent of the mulching that was done before. Look at this cherry tree, isn't that amazing? Just going to step back here. It's absolutely covered with blossom. Now that's only, let me see, been planted 2 years. You can see here, that's a little willow shelter, and I filled it with wood. It's almost dry. Well, it's dry enough now for burning actually, but it got a little bit wet. I had it lying down here in the grass. So I've stacked it because the air-dried wood is brilliant. It just burns beautifully. Now, we have a look here. Little orchid. Isn't that beautiful? And further up, you can see a few more. Just zoom in. There we go. Some more little orchids. Now, the way that they're growing there, they're sort of on a little animal path. So it's either the fox or the badger or another little mammal that's actually brought these seeds along. Perhaps on their fur, on their coat, you know, and they've dropped then as they've gone through and up towards the fence. That's the back of the shed, my little she shed. So just go over here, you can see. And you can see where I've stacked some more wood there on the bank. So what we'll do, we'll take a little bit of a different path today. Go back down here. You can see the back of the little lodge on the south side of the cottage. Jack, come on, let's go this way. Now it's an indication of how mild the weather is here. You can see the, let me see, what's it called? It's a form of yucca. Can't think of the name now. But the only thing that will kill that back is a really hard frost. And I mean like a really hard frost that persists for, 2 or 3 days steady. It did die back quite badly in 2010 when we had 6 weeks of hard frost. And it revived again in 2011, and then that winter we had another 6 weeks of hard frost. It's called cordyline, that's the name of it. And I thought that the whole thing had died because the plant itself, if the plant is just killed by the frost, that's one thing. But if the frost gets down into the roots, then that can be quite, a permanent kill, if you like. But if you look down here, what happened, to my great surprise and delight, was that the cordyline actually came back. And it came back from the root system, so there must have been part of the roots that just weren't killed, and it came back in 5, 6, 7, I think there's about 7 different stems on there, and it's growing quite happily underneath this purple beech tree. And then at the base of the tree, this is a beautiful herb, it's called Sweet Joe Pie, and that's coming up. And then on the side of it, London Pride, oregano, and there's even some mint crept in there. Jack? So, we'll walk along this way. Now, that's the edge of my land there, and you can see there's some wild bluebells in there. They're beautiful. So I allow the edge of the land to remain as wild as possible. I don't do too much to it. Now it's only just, a few feet in depth. This is one of my little wood sheds, little wood piles. Just have a look up here and see all these beautiful bluebells. And there's ferns coming up there as well. Isn't that lovely? And these are the lime trees. So we'll walk over this way. Cuttings take very, very easily. You can see I've started a little hedge along here, just on the edge of the path. And that's like a very fast growing form of box. This is an area I've yet to cut back. Busy pruning and tidying up. Because really now, with the gardens planted, it's a case of managing the gardens and making sure that everything gets adequate light and adequate space. So, like for example, this is red dogwood, Cornus alba sibirica. It's gone very tall, but I'm actually going to leave it like that because that's a really nice sort of shape, and it's not doing too much harm to anything around it. Lots of black currants on here. God, there's going to be a bumper crop. Really is. And you can hear the little bees here around the black currants behind me. Now there are some black currant seeds up on the website for sale, and there is a limited amount because they're very hard to save and get to a point where they are good to go. So I only have a limited amount. All the black currants here in this garden, all of them came from two what I call mother bushes, mother plants, and they grow from cuttings, they grow from seeds. The birds eat some of the black currants because I always allow the birds to have their share, and they go and they sit in trees and then they poop and the little seeds come out, and more often than not they start to grow a black currant bush. So it's quite funny. I can go around various places in the garden and think, oh, this is a favourite spot for the birds to sit and gorge on their black currants, just from the amount of little plants that are coming up. So the lovage is actually broken through this mulch bed, which is amazing. It's quite funny, but it is a very strong herb. But other than that, actually mulching with the cardboard and the straw has really been very successful, because that bed was filled with what's it called? Bindweed, which is a very insidious kind of a plant. I mean, it has its uses, but it can spread and really take over things. So there's Jack. He's just stood there watching me. So we're going to go and have a look in the tunnel and see how things are going on in there. So I do need to get in there and do a little bit of watering. So you can see the plants that I put in here are coming along nicely. They don't seem to be bothered with the fact that they're squashed in there with other plants. And I have a little pink anemone coming out there. Really good harvest coming on one of the plum trees. I think I have 4 plum trees in the garden. I've lost count. I need to take a morning or an afternoon and go round and kind of count all the trees and the plants. Or definitely the trees anyway. Gosh, look, there's a lot of flies in here today. That's because of the wet weather and it's very humid. They're fine, they won't do any harm. They're pollinators just as much as anything else. Well, not as much as the bees, but because the bees are really hard workers. Look at that beautiful bumblebee. This is in the Aquilegia, the columbine. Do you know I've never been stung by a bee here? Never. Gone up to the other Aquilegia. This is the importance of growing flowers along with your fruit and vegetables. You know, having this really good mix of plants, because look at that bee there, look. Has it gone to sleep on the flower? Look at that. Gosh, hope it's all right. It's gorged itself probably. And you can see there's some pink columbine coming up there at the back. Now, we'll walk on round. The tunnel is overflowing. been a victim of its own success. The compost heaps. Now Jack will go over this way. We'll go down this way. Take you on a new path. Go back and have a look at this pear tree. Remember I showed you the pear tree a couple of weeks ago? And I said that we cut off some of the lower branches because the tree was falling over. It had got very heavy. Well, as I thought, it hasn't done it any harm. In fact, it's done it good. Because look at the little fruits now that are forming. Isn't that lovely? And here as well, look. Just see the fruits. I did give it a jolly good feed. Because I think that if you're going to prune trees, and especially give them a hard prune in order to save them, then you should also give them a really good feed and treat them like an invalid, you know. So this is a little archway. I'll go to the other side and then pull back a little bit so you can see. That's a self-supporting archway. So in there's ribes, which is flowering currant. There was a little bit of willow initially to help support it. There's roses and Virginia creeper and jostaberry. This is I've just noticed actually, we've got some little red currants already forming. So that's looking really good. This bush, and it is just, I think it's just one bush. What I did, as I cut bits off and pruned it, you know, over successive autumns, I just stuck the bits in the ground. And you know, you have gardening programs that say this is how you do this, and you must do it like this and do it like that. I just stuck them in the ground all around the plant, so it's become like a massive shrub now. But I'm getting beautiful harvests on it every year, like really good harvests, so it's obviously happy. Jack? He looked as though he was carrying something in his mouth, but he wasn't. So, the May blossom is about to come out on the little fairy thorns. And just see the buds. Now, the common name for the fairy thorn would be the hawthorn. And this is one which I've planted in this secret little spot. That's the fairy wood down there. This is grown from a seed from the fairy tree down in the wood. And I'll show you just how magical this little tree is. There's the one stem, you see? And then the one stem divided into two. And then the two stems seem to come together in a love match. And now there's three. Isn't that beautiful? This is a special little tree. This is how it decided to go. It was almost speaking to me, you know. I do listen to my trees. I think trees are very intelligent. And I think we're very arrogant. We're arrogant to the extent that we think, well, if it doesn't have a face and it doesn't talk, then it doesn't communicate. Well, I've only got one word to say to that. Rubbish. Now last night I was out pruning the Japanese quince and tying it up. It's been there for years. I planted it in what I suppose would be regarded now as the hugelkultur bed, because I had some big bits of tree trunk that I got from a friend who was clearing her garden. And as you can see, look, I just put them into 3 pieces like that and put in some compost and planted the Japanese quince, and then I put some Montbretia in there, so Crocosmia, and a little fern has made its home in there. It's just unfurling. So this is beginning to look very Japanese now, very minimalistic. All the seedlings are starting to come up. For most of the winter these little pots look quite forlorn, and then suddenly the warm weather comes, a little bit of rain falls, and they start to look really grand. And again, you can see how everything has come into leaf around the door. And still lots of little plants naturalising in the gravel. Saxifraga. There's going to be a really beautiful show of Aquilegia quite soon. And you can see here where I threw some seeds onto the gravel. Look how they're all coming up. Got some flower heads appearing on the valerian. And, oh, look at this. We have the first of the clematis opening up. And again, you can see there's going to be a massive amount of flowers. So that's going to be quite a delight to behold. Fed by the compost, which it's obviously thriving on. And you can see there's pyracantha there. Like the pyracantha's growing up from under the window. And I trained it into some multi-stems to take it either side of the window. And it's the pyracantha now which is holding up the clematis. And you can also see there Virginia creeper. These were all cuttings, you know, that I just put in the soil. The cuttings, I put several cuttings of the Virginia creeper down there. Some bluebells. Now, I do have something quite delightful to show you in terms of the Aquilegia, because a couple of years ago, I don't know, I can't remember if I was walking down the driveway or walking up the driveway, but I had a heap of Aquilegia seed in my pocket, and I literally scattered them all just here. And you can see all the plants so in another few days that's going to be a mass of purple and pink. You can see what I do with stuff that I cut back. I create little habitat piles around the garden, and as the wood rots down, I mean it's creating a habitat for birds and mammals and insects, but as it rots down it begins to feed the soil and create even richer earth. Walk down just a little bit. Now this is lovely. I'm so glad to share this with you, because this is called sedge, and it's an indigenous wild plant. It grows in marshy ground here in Ireland, But look at the beautiful flower heads on it. Aren't they gorgeous? And of course, as you know, Bealtaine is a mixture of wild and cultivated, because there's just so much beauty in nature, you know, and you want to mix it in together, and it's just a lovely way to create a garden. You can also see there the Gunera is coming up. Now, people say, oh, that's terrible, it spreads. No, it doesn't. It will not spread if it has nowhere to spread to. And you can see the Gunera here is beautifully wrapped and trapped in a little area, with the cherry tree on one side, little Scots pine on the other, ribes, box, rubus, sedge and snowball bush. So it has nowhere to go, but it's very happy. They also say that this particular plant likes to be beside water. This is a very dry bank, so I try not to think, oh, why is it doing this and how is it doing this. I just regard it with awe and delight. So, Jack, come on, up here, away from the road. I live in fear of him getting run over, because I've lost a little dog on the road down there before, and it was very upsetting. Come on, Jack. So here, you can see how I've planted in on the side of the driveway. So I've taken some big stones and I've placed them thus in order to hold the compost that I put into them, because you know we're on a slope here, okay? And I don't want all the soil running off downhill. And then into the compost I've planted forsythia, which is this, and Jacob's ladder, which of course will grow anywhere. And then here I've planted, grown from seed, a horse chestnut, and in the pot came up some honesty. So as the honesty begins to develop into seed heads, the wind will just shake out those seed heads and there'll be a bank of honesty coming down the driveway. So this is quite a natural way of creating gardens that will stand the test of time, because the seeds will only grow if they're happy where they fall. This is fuchsia, and through the fuchsia is growing some honeysuckle. And just go over this way. But that's really the kind of planting scheme that I've done all the way down the driveway. And I've put plants in with just the minimum of soil, but I have fed them with compost then, which has helped them and helped their roots to develop. And they've pushed their roots down through the gravel and, you know, got a hold that way. The lovely yellow flowers of the carrier. Now, these are those Lelandii. Now, they can overtake a garden, so I do keep them trimmed, and I do use the branches to shred to make a lovely cover for the compost toilet. Again, you can see what I've done here. As I've been cutting the rubus, I've just piled it up on the bank between the gunera and the cherry tree, and that will rot down and again create nutrition for the plants that are growing there. I don't follow any rule books. When it comes to gardening and planting, everything I do is very intuitive. If it makes sense, if it's something that I feel is going to benefit the land, then I do it. So you can see in front of all the rubus that I stacked up there, there is the astrantia, and that's coming up. That's the perennial, that will come up year on year. You can also see along the bank little bits of rubus and crocosmia and montbretia, that's growing well there. Some of the plants I don't have the names of. This lovely chocolate leafed shrub, haven't got the name of that. This is a willow, lovely yellow stems. And gosh, that does look beautiful, actually coming up behind there. The flowering currant, it's growing like a tree. And look in there, there's a little hawthorn, a little fairy tree. So I'll leave that. I don't move anything or prune anything unless I feel it's bullying out other things, you know. So the last spot in this little foray into the gardens will take us through here and down into what is the back of the fairy wood. And you can see the swathe of bluebells there. And again you can see where I've cut branches and I've just, you know, stacked them up. And again that creates a lovely little habitat. And you have to do that. If you want to have a garden that honours the goddess, then you have to honour what it is she does. And this little area, none of this was created by me. You can see the bluebells, and these are the original bluebells, because a lot of the bluebells now that are sold in garden centres are Spanish bluebells, and they're very upright. But if you look at these bluebells, they have those beautiful little drooping heads, and these are the original bluebells, the wild bluebells. Jack's gone, oh no. Oh, try not to sit on them, Jack. Now, we've got some ferns coming up here as well. And then this is the beautiful ash tree that was coppiced, whether by accident or deliberately, I don't know. But we've got all these multi-stems coming up from it. I'm sort of... Jack stood here looking at me. I'm just getting a bit nervous because I'm thinking, is he going to go careering through those bluebells behind him? But I know, I'm sure he won't do too much harm. And there's a little fairy house down there. I'll have to come back and do a little video on this because I'm a bit unnerved. I don't know why Jack stood there looking at me. He's obviously expecting something. I don't know. Jack, I'm going to walk through this way now. Okay, if we tramp on a few things, that's okay. That's all right. It's not done with malice. Now, there's one more thing I want to share with you. And they're over this side of the fairy wood. We'll just have a little walk over. This last thing I want to share with you is actually quite delightful. I don't know if many of you get the opportunity to see wild violets, but there are some here in the fairy wood. Can you see? can also see the amount of regeneration here with ash trees and hawthorn trees. And the beautiful ferns uncurling. And over here, more violets. Oh, no, they're not. Yes, they are violets. A form of violet, you know, I think. See here? And just up here, some more little orchids. They're wonderful. I make these videos for you to enjoy. You won't see my face appearing on the videos because this isn't about me. This isn't about me or ego. I'm not intent on making my face famous or well regarded. I just make the videos because I think it's important to put them out there, to share them with you. Let everyone see just how beautiful Mother Earth is. Look, there's more bluebells up there. I want to say thank you for those people who support Bealtaine Cottage. I get small donations here and there. Occasionally I get a very generous donation, which I do feel a little bit overwhelmed by. If you would like to support Bealtaine Cottage, there are ways to do it. I'm not asking for you to give me anything, but I would ask for an exchange. So there's seeds for sale, so you can click on that little bar at the top of the website page. There are pendants for sale and crystals. You can also subscribe, which is €12 per year, to Bealtaine Cottage Good Life. There's a very practical reason why I started that page, that website, because the bealtainecottage.com site is completely full. It is nigh impossible to upload any more photographs. It does cost me a fair bit of money per year to run the websites. I'm happy to do so. I will continue writing and photographing, posting on Facebook, posting on YouTube. I'll continue to do that regardless anyway. But if you would like to support in any way, whether it's through buying something from the site, or through a donation or a subscription, I thank you most sincerely. This is my only form of income. And yes, I do have a small mortgage still to carry, which I will be carrying until I'm 67 years old. I hope you all have a good day. It certainly is turning into a lovely day here. And I've just noticed as well the very first flowers on the horse chestnut. Blessings to you all.